Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are set to lead a Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, under President-elect Donald Trump, working with the White House Office of Management and Budget, OMB, to propose federal spending cuts and regulatory changes. The arrangement raises potential ethics concerns, as OMB oversees regulations affecting Musk's companies, including Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink, which have lobbied the agency and benefited from government contracts. Ethics experts warn of conflicts of interest, given Musk's influence over an office that impacts federal contractors and regulatory decisions. The duo supports executive actions over new laws and has proposed eliminating agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Critics argue Musk's involvement could give his businesses under advantages, while Musk and Ramaswamy have pledged to ensure ethical compliance. Retailers are leveraging fear of potential tariffs under President-elect Donald Trump to drive sales, urging consumers to buy now before prices rise. Businesses like Finally Home Furnishing and Jolie Skin are warning of significant price hikes, with some claiming costs could double. Influencers and companies are prompting bulk buying and stockpiling strategies, while small businesses like J&J Sports Service and artist Anthony Ruiz are running pre-tariff sales to boost orders and prepare for increased costs. Major corporations like AutoZone and Lowe's have indicated they might pass tariff-related costs onto consumers. A National Retail Federation study estimates tariffs could reduce U.S. shoppers' annual spending power by $78 billion. President-elect Donald Trump is planning to expand local law enforcement's role in mass deportations, particularly by empowering sheriff under Federal 287G program, which allows them to assess ICE in immigration enforcement. Supporters like Maryland Sheriff Chuck Jenkins and Ohio Sheriff Richard Jones see Trump's plan as a mandate for more assertive actions, including detaining and deporting undocumented immigrants. Critics argue this approach fosters fear in immigrant communities, disrupts trust, and risks economic harm, while data suggests immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than U.S. citizens. Trump's team is also exploring financial incentives for cooperating jurisdictions and penalties for sanctuary cities, aiming to expand enforcement on a historic scale. The proposal has polarized communities, with some seeing it as necessary for public safety and others viewing it as harsh and discriminatory. Performance Improvement Plans, PIPs, widely regarded as a tool to manage or terminate underperforming employees, are increasingly common as companies prioritize efficiency and cost cutting. While PIPs are designed to offer employees a chance to improve, they are often criticized as a formality to shield companies from wrongful termination lawsuits. Some managers and employees view PIPs as demoralizing, with a majority of those placed in them either leaving the organization or being terminated. Alternatives such as offering severance instead of initiating a PIP are gaining traction in some companies. Employees on PIPs often seek to strategically respond, such as job hunting, filing for protected leave, or creating detailed improvement plans to navigate the process. Faces increasing threats from AI-powered tools and platforms like Amazon and TikTok, which are diverting search traffic and advertising dollars, leading to a projected drop in its U.S. search ad market share below 50% by 2025. The rise of AI-driven answer engines and chatbots integrated by competitors like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Apple is disrupting Google's dominance in search by providing users direct answers without visiting external sites. Google's own AI innovations, such as search result summaries, risk undermining the broader internet ecosystem by reducing traffic to websites and weakening incentives for content creation. These challenges are compounded by declining click-through rates on Google search ads, with potential revenue losses for publishers and advertisers due to diminished engagement. While Google remains dominant for now, long-term competitive pressures in a Justice Department antitrust case seeking remedies, like breaking up its operations, could reshape its role in the tech landscapes. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway has maintained a significant stake in Moody's, reflecting a preference for financial information services companies with strong data and analysis modes. Companies like Moody's, S&P Global, and Fair Isaac benefit from proprietary data, recurring revenue models, and industry-standard benchmarks, offering higher margins and valuations compared to traditional banks. Fair Isaac, known for its FICO scores, has seen remarkable stock performance due to pricing changes and expanding its platform applications, particularly in credit scoring and customer decision-making tools. Challenges include potential regulatory changes, competition from alternative scoring models, and cyclical economic impacts, raising concerns about Fair Isaac's lofty valuation. Despite risks, the growing need for financial data and analysis could sustain strong demand for these information and analysis merchants in the finance sector. President-elect Donald Trump's vow to repeal President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, faces resistance from Republican lawmakers benefiting from the law's billions in clean energy funding, particularly in red states. Many GOP legislators, including key Trump supporters, are reluctant to fully repeal the IRA due to its role in funding renewable energy, job creation, and economic projects in their districts. Clean energy companies and investors are uncertain about the IRA's future, prompting reassessments of projects and raising concerns about potential cuts to tax credits and incentives for wind, solar, and electric vehicles. Influential figures like North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and major fossil fuel industry stakeholders back IRA provisions like carbon capture subsidies critical for ethanol production and other energy projects. While a full repeal appears unlikely, the Trump administration may attempt to curtail specific IRA provisions, triggering intense lobbying and debates over which subsidies to preserve or cut. Corporate America is employing unconventional methods to influence Donald Trump's agenda before his second inauguration, including scrubbing left-leaning policies, engaging with conservative media, and investing in Trump's associated cryptocurrency. Businesses hope to gain sway over critical economic decisions such as tariffs and key appointments, with some already securing direct meetings or influence via intermediaries like lobbyists Brian Ballard and Jeff Miller. High-profile CEOs are leveraging personal connections and pursuing appearances on influential podcasts like Joe Rogan's to reach Trump and his base. Companies are also aligning their policies with GOP priorities like job creation while seeking out allies with Trump's team, such as Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. The administration's openness to business and innovation has drawn optimistic engagement from tech leaders, oil executives, and cryptocurrency advocates. The UK's House of Commons approved the Terminally Ill Adults Bill, allowing medically assisted suicide for terminally ill patients in England and Wales with less than 6 months to live, subject to strict safeguards like judicial approval. The bill, requiring up to 2 years to become law, marks a historic shift, joining countries like Canada, Spain, and 10 U.S. states that have enacted similar measures. Advocates argue it provides a humane option for suffering patients, while opponents express concerns about potential abuses and call for improved palliative care instead. Emotional stories from both sides highlighted the personal and ethical weight of the issue, with a majority of Brits supporting the principle in recent surveys. Previous attempts to legalize assisted dying had failed, but growing global momentum helped push this bill forward. American oil executives and bond investors are lobbying President-elect Donald Trump to negotiate with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro for oil exports in exchange for reduced migration instead of pursuing regime change. Proponents of a policy shift argue that easing sanctions could lower U.S. energy prices and migration while limiting Chinese and Russian influence in Venezuela, though critics warn it may not alleviate migration caused by Maduro's authoritarian rule. Maduro has signaled openness to negotiations, offering deals to U.S. investors and suggesting cooperation on deportation flights and oil exports, aligning with Trump's goal for reducing migration and strengthening U.S. energy supply. Trump's nomination of hardliners like Marco Rubio and Mauricio Cleveland-Caron to key positions indicates a likely continuation of a tough stance on Maduro, despite interest in potential economic opportunities in Venezuela. The situation remains contentious, with opposition leaders calling for protests and urging Trump to maintain sanctions to pressure Maduro's regime while addressing migration and human rights concerns. Federal judges' September ruling highlighted potential risks of fluoride in drinking water, linking it to IQ loss in children at higher levels, which has spurred activists and lawmakers to push for ending fluoridation. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo have publicly criticized fluoridation, with Ladapo calling it public health malpractice and urging communities to stop the practice. The debate over fluoride, rooted in concerns about its safety and effectiveness, has led to a wave of town votes and proposed bills in states like Arkansas and Kentucky to end fluoridation mandates. Proponents, including the CDC and American Dental Association, defend fluoridation as a major public health achievement, while critics argue it poses health risks and it's unnecessary due to alternative fluoride sources. With support from high-profile figures in recent court rulings, anti-fluoride activists feel empowered to challenge long-standing practices, though the issue continues to divide experts and communities nationwide. Donald Trump's immigration plans, including tighter border controls and deportations, could significantly reduce U.S. job growth by 25,000 to 100,000 jobs monthly, with a notable impact on sectors reliant on immigrant labor like construction and hospitality. Immigration has been the primary driver of labor force growth since 2021, with around 10 million people added, but many of these individuals entered the U.S. without authorization or overstayed visas. Economists predict Trump's policies could lower net immigration to the annual rate of his first presidency, reducing labor force and economic growth while raising wages and prices in certain industries. Estimates suggest U.S. population growth will slow, with some scenarios projecting negative net migration, impacting sustainable job creation and reducing economic growth by up to 0.4 percentage points. While Trump's policies aim to address border security and the perceived costs of unauthorized migration, they could lead to abrupt economic adjustments, particularly in employment and spending patterns. Home sales are at their lowest since 1995 due to high home prices, volatile mortgage rates near 7%, and economic uncertainty, though conditions may improve in 2025 if rates and prices growth slow. A legal settlement has reduced real estate agent commissions, with buyer agent fees dropping from 2.65% to 2.28%, and seller agent fees falling from 2.98% to 2.69%. Buyers now often sign agreements specifying agent fees, and sellers aren't required to cover buyer agent costs, leading some buyers to navigate the process without agents. While some buyers succeed without agents to save costs, others face difficulties accessing homes as many agents require agreements for showings. The Justice Department is investigating whether the new rules could limit competition, potentially harming buyers. U.S. stocks have outperformed international equities for over a decade, with the S&P 500 surging 26% in 2024 compared to a 3% rise in an MSCI index of non-U.S. stocks. Many investors are abandoning international stocks, viewing large U.S. companies with global operations as sufficient exposure to foreign markets. Proponents argue that international equities provide diversification, reduce portfolio volatility, and potential for future rebounds. Critics highlight their underperformance, currency risks, and the complexity of global market as reasons to avoid them. The geopolitical landscape, including potential tariff policies from the Trump administration, may further impact the outlook for international investments. MicroStrategy, an unprofitable software company turned Bitcoin holding firm, has seen its stock soar over 500% in 2024, fueled by a surge in Bitcoin's price and heavy retail investor interest. The company's appeal lies in its leveraged exposure to Bitcoin, highlighted by its innovative BTC yield metric, which measures the increase in Bitcoin per share. Enthusiastic investors like retired airline captain George Boatline and wealth advisor Peter Duan view MicroStrategy as a sophisticated play on Bitcoin's potential to reshape global finance. Others, like former analyst Rajat Soni and grad student Dan Hillary, have heavily invested in MicroStrategy, achieving significant returns but acknowledging the high risks involved. While skeptics warn of the volatility and risks tied to Bitcoin's history of boom-bust cycles, MicroStrategy remains a compelling leverage bet for its fervent fan base. A Chinese bulk carrier, Yipeng 3, is under investigation for allegedly cutting two critical Baltic undersea data cables by dragging its anchor for over 100 miles, with NATO ships now surrounding it. Authorities suspect Russian intelligence involvement in the sabotage, although no direct evidence links the Chinese government. The ship's transponder was switched off during the incident, and damage to its anchor and hull lines with the cable serving claims. While investigators negotiate access to the ship and its crew, the case is complicated by international maritime law that limits NATO's ability to force action. The incident has heightened tensions in the Baltic region, a flashpoint for suspected Russian sabotage of European infrastructure. Elon Musk launched xAI in 2023 to compete with OpenAI, quickly assembling a team, building infrastructure like the Colossus data center in record time, and leveraging resources from his other companies such as Tesla and X. xAI has raised $11 billion with a valuation of $50 billion, but trails OpenAI significantly in revenue, relying mostly on Musk's businesses while aiming for a broader market presence through tools and a planned standalone app. Despite significant investments and rapid progress, xAI's Grok chatbot still lags behind competitors like OpenAI, Google, and Meta, and faces criticism for limited capabilities. Musk focused on accelerating xAI's capabilities by building large-scale data centers like Colossus and securing GPUs from partners like NVIDIA, though the speed of development raised logistical and environmental concerns. Musk has targeted OpenAI through lawsuits, competitive moves, and public criticisms, using high-profile recruiting events and fundraising efforts to assert xAI's potential despite its ongoing developmental gaps. The Biden administration will leave over $6.5 billion in authorized drawdown funds for Ukraine unused, leaving decisions about the remaining funds to President-elect Donald Trump. Logistical and readiness challenges prevent the Pentagon from transferring the full amount of weapons to Ukraine before Biden's term ends. Trump's administration will inherit considerable leverage with these unspent funds influencing Ukraine's military support and potential peace negotiations with Russia. Kyiv faces manpower shortages, needing 160,000 additional troops despite sufficient weaponry, according to U.S. officials. Biden has requested an additional $24 billion from Congress for Ukraine, but incoming Republican leadership is likely to limit future support. China is aggressively recruiting global tech talent, particularly in advanced semiconductors and AI, with firms like Huawei offering triple pay to lure engineers from companies like Germany's Zeiss SMT, triggering investigations by Western intelligence agencies. European and US governments are increasingly concerned about the talent poaching as a method for China to bypass restrictions on sensitive technologies, though responses vary in strictness. Taiwan and South Korea have enacted stricter penalties for trade secret theft and unauthorized talent recruitment, while the US and Europe remain relatively open despite the risks. German firms such as Zeiss and Trumpf have faced intensified Chinese recruitment efforts, but local authorities are cautious about over-regulating hiring practices. Despite challenges in preventing poaching, governments and companies are stepping up measures to protect intellectual property and maintain technological advantages. Several nominees for President-elect Donald Trump's administration, including Howard Lutnick, Pete Hegseth, and Brooke Rollins, were targeted with bomb threats or swatting incidents at their homes, though no explosives were found. Law enforcement responded swiftly to these hoaxes with investigations led by the FBI and Secret Service. Republican Alice Stefanik, Trump's pick for UN ambassador, received a bomb threat while en route to her home, and Lee Zeldin, nominated to head the EPA, was targeted with a pro-Palestinian themed pipe bomb threat. These incidents raised concerns about political violence following earlier threats and an attempted assassination of Trump in July. Trump campaign officials confirmed the threats, emphasizing that no one was harmed and security measures are ongoing.
The article examines how allegations of sexual misconduct have impacted high-profile nominees, specifically Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Pete Hegseth, for key positions in the Trump administration. Kennedy faces allegations from a former intern, Eliza Cooney, dating back to the 1990s, which he partially addressed in an apology while maintaining no memory of the incident. Similarly, Hegseth is accused of paying a woman to silence claims of assault, although he denies wrongdoing and was previously cleared by an investigation. Both nominees are expected to face intense scrutiny during Senate confirmation hearings, which may include questions about their qualifications and past behaviors. This situation echoes previous controversial confirmation processes, such as that of Brett Kavanaugh, highlighting ongoing debates about accountability in high-stakes political appointments.
Elon Musk, alongside biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, has been tapped by President-elect Donald Trump to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, aiming to cut $2 trillion in U.S. federal spending. Most federal expenses are categorized as mandatory, such as Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, which together amount to trillions annually, driven by healthcare costs and an aging population. Discretionary spending, including defense and non-defense sectors, makes up a smaller portion of the budget, but is a frequent target for cuts. The U.S. government's deficit, funded heavily by debt, totaled $1.83 trillion last year, underlining the challenges of balancing expenditures and revenues. Reducing federal spending on this scale would require navigating political resistance and the complexities of entrenched budgetary obligations. Unmarried couples are increasingly prioritizing homeownership over marriage, with about 555,000 pairs buying homes in 2023, up 46% from a decade earlier. Many see purchasing a home as a greater commitment and a step toward financial stability, with median homeowner wealth far surpassing that of renters. Rising costs of homes and weddings have led some couples to invest in property instead of lavish ceremonies, delaying marriage or foregoing it entirely. Legal challenges arise for unmarried buyers, prompting some to consider cohabitation agreements to protect assets, though many rely on trust instead. With rent hikes and growing housing costs, couples often find buying offers more space and financial security, even as they postpone tying the knot. ChatGPT and other generative AI tools have become integral to daily life, assisting users in diverse areas like work, hobbies, and problem solving. People use AI for creative tasks such as designing candle labels, painting enhancements, and generating wedding toasts. It also serves as a practical tool for learning, simplifying complex information, and resolving disputes like drafting legal letters or creating personalized diet plans. AI's conversational abilities help with brainstorming, language learning, and engaging in niche interests such as music history or book club discussions. Additionally, it enhances personal experiences such as planning family trips, cooking, and guiding major life events like weddings. Facebook CEO Shao Kru has reached out to Elon Musk for insights into the incoming Trump administration, viewing him as a potential conduit due to his close ties to President-elect Trump. TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance face a possible U.S. ban unless they divest from the platform by mid-January, as mandated by a recent law that TikTok is challenging in court. Musk, who has been advising Trump on various issues, including cabinet appointments, has not discussed specific strategies to keep TikTok operating in the U.S. ByteDance executives remain cautiously optimistic about a path forward and have been engaging with representatives from both major political parties. The U.S. government's concerns center on potential Chinese government influence and spying, which TikTok has denied. Keratopigmentation, a $12,000 cosmetic procedure to permanently change eye color, is growing in popularity but raises significant safety concerns among medical professionals. Surgeons use lasers to create corneal tunnels filled with pigment, offering immediate results but carrying risks such as vision loss, infections, and light sensitivity. Critics argue the procedures are unsafe for healthy eyes as the pigments and lasers used are not FDA approved for this purpose, while proponents claim it boosts confidence and enhances appearance. Some patients report satisfaction despite side effects like light sensitivity, while others have faced complications, including pigment fading and corneal thinning after previous surgeries. The American Academy of Ophthalmology advises against the procedure for cosmetic reasons, suggesting prescription contact lenses as a safer alternative. China views Elon Musk as a potential intermediary between Beijing and Donald Trump's administration, leveraging Musk's significant investments in Shanghai and his connections with Chinese leaders. Musk's favorable remarks about China and his business-oriented pragmatism contrast sharply with the hawkish stance on Trump's advisors, who advocate for tariffs and stricter policies toward Beijing. Tesla's Shanghai factory is pivotal to both Musk's operations, producing half of Tesla's global output, and China's narrative of openness to foreign investment. Musk's ties with Chinese leaders, particularly Premier Li Qiang, have facilitated unprecedented business opportunities, including sole ownership of Tesla's Shanghai plant and prospects in telecommunications and technology. Beijing hopes Musk can mediate U.S.-China tensions, but the durability of his influence depends on his relationship with Trump and the evolving political landscape. Senator J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect, is navigating challenges in helping President-elect Donald Trump secure Senate support for controversial cabinet nominees, with early turbulence following Matt Gaetz' withdrawal as Attorney General nominee amid misconduct allegations. Vance has been playing a pivotal role in the transition, leveraging relationship with lawmakers to advocate for Trump's policies and nominees, including Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State and Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. While his ties on Capitol Hill may aid confirmation efforts, Trump's direct approach and active networking could overshadow Vance's liaison role. Despite some online missteps, Vance's presence in the Senate has drawn bipartisan interactions, showcasing his growing influence in shaping the incoming administration's agenda. Critics and allies alike view his limited Senate tenure as both a liability and an asset in this transitional period. Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy argue that unelected bureaucrats wield disproportionate power, issuing numerous regulations and making enforcement decisions, which undermines democracy and burdens taxpayers. They will lead the new Department of Government Efficiency under President Trump to reduce federal bureaucracy, rescind unconstitutional regulations, and cut costs using executive action aligned with recent Supreme Court rulings. DOGE plans to nullify regulations that exceed congressional authority, streamline federal agencies to their constitutional mandates, and use executive orders for headcount reductions, including early retirements and relocations. The initiative targets unauthorized expenditures, audits federal contracts for waste reductions, and seeks immediate taxpayer savings without requiring congressional action. With a 2026 deadline, Musk and Ramaswamy aim to dismantle DOGE after completing its mission, delivering a leaner, constitutionally sound federal government for America's 250th anniversary. Apple CEO Tim Cook successfully developed a personal relationship with President Trump through direct communication, such as phone calls and dinners, focusing on specific issues of mutual interest. Cook's approach, bringing one key point to each meeting, helped keep discussions on track and secure key outcomes of Apple, such as avoiding tariffs and influencing Trump's tax policies. With Trump again in power, other CEOs are now trying to replicate Cook's strategy by building relationships directly with the administration through a combination of personal contacts, middlemen like Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, and trade groups. The article discusses how U.S. federal deficits have influenced markets across different presidential administrations. Under Ronald Reagan, large tax cuts led to a surge in deficits and high treasury yields, with stocks still performing well. In subsequent years, deficit reduction efforts under George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton helped lower interest rates and boosted investments, while George W. Bush and Barack Obama saw deficit rise again, impacting economic recovery and market performance. Donald Trump's tax cuts and pandemic spending caused a sharp increase in the deficit, with a strong stock market rebound. Under President Biden, ongoing deficits and rising interest rates have led to a higher bond yield, but markets remained resilient, driven by economic strength and expectations of continued deficit spending. Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy argue that unelected bureaucrats wield disproportionate power, issuing numerous regulations and making enforcement decisions, which undermines democracy and burdens taxpayers. They will lead the new Department of Government Efficiency under President Trump to reduce federal bureaucracy, rescind unconstitutional regulations, and cut costs using executive action aligned with recent Supreme Court rulings. DOGE plans to nullify regulations that exceed congressional authority, streamline federal agencies to their constitutional mandates, and use executive orders for headcount reductions, including early retirements and relocations. The initiative targets unauthorized expenditures, audits federal contracts for waste reductions, and seeks immediate taxpayer savings without requiring congressional action. With a 2026 deadline, Musk and Ramaswamy aim to dismantle DOGE after completing its mission, delivering a leaner, constitutionally sound federal government for America's 250th anniversary. Tesla's Gigafactory in Austin faced significant environmental violations, including toxic air emissions from a faulty furnace and untreated hazardous wastewater flowing into city sewers, raising regulatory concerns. Internet documents and whistleblower accounts revealed that Tesla managers often prioritize production over addressing environmental compliance, creating pressure on employees to ignore or conceal issues. Tesla's violations included over 100 air pollution breaches at its Fremont facility and the improper disposal of industrial waste in Austin, with regulators citing numerous incidents of non-compliance and inadequate corrective actions. A whistleblower accused Tesla of asking employees to falsify reports to regulators and documented severe issues like polluted runoff into the Colorado River and untreated wastewater discharge, prompting preliminary investigations by the EPA and Texas regulators. Elon Musk's push to streamline regulations, coupled with Tesla's track record of environmental non-compliance, raises concerns about future oversight, especially as Musk assumes a federal deregulation role under the new government. Scott Bessent, a seasoned hedge fund manager and an economic historian, has been selected by Donald Trump as Treasury Secretary, aiming to address the U.S. debt and economic challenges through growth-focused policies. Known for his macro investing expertise, Bessent plans to pursue Trump's tax cut initiatives, reduce spending, and bolster the dollar's reserve currency status. Drawing inspiration from Japan's three-arrow policy, he advocates for a 3-3-3 plan to cut the deficit, increase GDP growth, and boost domestic oil production. He supports using tariffs strategically to strengthen U.S. trade positions, promote domestic industry, and incentivize fair trade practices among allies. Bessent's track record includes influential roles at Soros Fund Management and his own Key Square Capital Management, achieving significant gains while emphasizing economic history and long-term planning. Commodities like gold, oil, and copper, traditionally used to hedge against inflation, are showing weaker effectiveness due to geopolitical and economic factors such as surplus oil supplies and U.S.-China economic decoupling. Inflation risks stem from multiple sources: potential Middle East oil supply disruptions, stronger U.S. growth, tariffs, and migrant deportation policies, each impacting commodities differently. Tariffs may initially increase prices but could slow the economy over time, complicating the impact on inflation, while migrant deportations might drive wages and food prices higher, affecting agricultural markets. Treasury inflation-protected securities are a safe hedge against inflation but are better suited for long-term inflation rather than sudden spikes. Portfolio strategies including hold TIPS to maturity, considering gold for stagflation, and investing in energy stocks as a potential hedge against oil price shocks. MicroStrategy has experienced a dramatic rise in its stock value, significantly outperforming Bitcoin as it leverages borrowed funds to expand its Bitcoin holdings. While the strategy has drawn interest from investors seeking exposure to cryptocurrency, critics warn that the company's reliance on leverage and speculative appeal makes it highly risky. Traders are attracted to the stock's volatility, with some using leveraged ETFs to amplify their gains. Supporters see MicroStrategy as a bold way to capitalize on Bitcoin's growth, but skeptics caution about potential losses from its speculative nature. Even crypto proponents express concern about the risks of over-leveraged investments leading to market corrections. Macy's delayed its third-quarter earnings report after discovering that an employee had hidden $132 million to $154 million in delivery expenses over several years. The investigation revealed the issue, isolated to a single employee, did not impact cash management or vendor payments, and the individual is no longer with the company. This financial reporting issue comes amid an industry-wide shortage of qualified accountants and as Macy's struggles with declining sales, down 2.4% year over year. Despite challenges, luxury brands Bloomingdale's and Bluemercury showed growth while Macy's saw mixed performance across categories. Preliminary results indicate total sales of $4.74 billion, slightly exceeding analyst expectations. The U.S. shifted its primary import source from China to Mexico in 2023, driven by tariffs introduced by President Trump starting in 2018. Despite tariffs, U.S. demand for imports grew, with the total value reaching $3.1 trillion in 2023, up from $2.3 trillion in 2017. Production for goods like laptops, semiconductors, and furniture has moved from China to other countries like Vietnam, Mexico, and Taiwan, although many still use Chinese components. Imports of specific products like kitchen cabinets have drastically reduced from China but increased from nations like Vietnam and Mexico. Some industries such as toys and video game consoles remain reliant on Chinese suppliers, with imports of these goods from China increasing since 2017. Rufo, a conservative activist and filmmaker, has become a leading voice against diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) practices, advocating for policies to cut federal funding to universities that promote such measures. He gained prominence by exposing controversial practices tied to critical race theory and influencing then President Trump's 2020 executive order banning race and sex stereotyping in federal programs. Rufo's plan for Trump's potential second term include reversing affirmative action policies, curbing university DEI programs, and shrinking college enrollment to prioritize merit and excellence. Critics argue his work undermines racial equity and free speech, while supporters see him as restoring fairness and accountability to education. Rufo's influence is growing in conservative circles, with figures like J.D. Vance and Linda McMahon embracing his vision for reshaping American education. Republicans are planning a comprehensive tax bill early in 2025, combining tax cuts, spending reductions, energy policy, and broader security while navigating tight majorities and using reconciliation to bypass Democratic opposition. The bill must address expiring 2017 tax cuts, GOP divisions on issues like the SALT deduction and clean energy subsidies, and include some sort of President-elect Trump's campaign promises, all while adhering to budget constraints. Proposals like cutting Medicaid and food stamps face internal opposition as to Trump's costly tax ideas, which could add trillions to deficits. Lawmakers are considering temporary cuts, phase implementations, and other budget tricks to manage costs within a 10-year window. Ultimately, balancing policy ambitions with securing enough votes in both chambers remain the biggest challenge.